Bilateral breathing sounds like the perfect style of breathing for swimming front crawl. And here at GTN, we often talk about the benefits of breathing on both sides, but we understand that for some of you, it might actually be more effort than it's worth. So with that in mind today, I'm going to be looking at both sides of the debate so you can decide whether bilateral breathing is for you. Bilateral means both sides, and when it's talked about in reference to swimming front crawl, it's about the breathing, and that's usually breathing every 3 strokes, but it could be up to 5 or 7 and so on. Now you'd think that anything that's even or the same on both sides is going to be great. Well, when it comes to swimming, that's not always necessarily so, as it can come at a cost for some. But we'll come back to that in a moment. It's now time to look at the pros of bilateral breathing. As I've already mentioned it, let's start by talking about balance. Now, breathing on both sides is going to lead to a more even stroke, so hopefully get the same workload to all of your muscles and joints that are used in the front crawl stroke. And in theory, that should allow you to swim for longer without getting tired, but also reduce the chance of getting any injury because there's not going to be any pinch points on one side more than the other. And then when it comes to actual range of movement at the joints and rotation, especially in your neck, as there is a certain amount of rotation of your neck to both sides when you're swimming, so when you're breathing, it's going to be accentuated and will hopefully help to keep your body just nice and even. Another pro is sighting and the ability to see others. Now, as triathletes, this one is key because you're not going to have the black line down the middle of the pool or a lane rope to guide you when you're swimming in an open water race. Admittedly, I know that sighting is lifting your eyes up in front of you to see the buoy that's up ahead, but being able to see what's on either side can be really beneficial too. Maybe you're staying parallel to the coast, or there's some other markers that you need to avoid on one side or the other. Having that ability to breathe on both sides will allow you to know what's around you. And the same goes for fellow swimmers and not wanting to bump into them, or maybe if you're wanting to follow the direction they're heading in. And that leads me on to the next point, drafting. Yes, if you're just drafting someone's feet, then that is purely in front of you, but maybe you've managed to get onto their hips or you're by their knees and you want to keep an eye on where they are, so you need to breathe on that side. But if they've got a really strong leg kick, you might want to breathe on the other side so you're not getting drowned with all of that splash. And our final pro, following on from the splash of the swimmer next to you, waves can have the same effect. So you'll want to breathe away from the waves if you want nice clean water and you don't want to be risking swallowing any salty water on every in-breath. But equally, you might occasionally want to breathe towards the waves so you know when they're coming, and you can use them to your benefit when it comes to sighting. Is you might want to be on top of the crest of the wave when you look for that buoy because you'll find it much easier to see. So with all of that, why don't all swimmers and triathletes breathe bilaterally? I think it's time to look at the cons. Bilateral breathing could even compromise your stroke. I mentioned that how you breathe will affect your stroke, and it's not always in a positive manner. If you're someone who has a lot of rotation already, add in breathing on both sides, well, that's probably going to accentuate that rotation and maybe even lead to over-rotation and basically slowing you down that way. If you are a swimmer that doesn't rotate too much, but maybe you have excessive head movement when you breathe, if you're now suddenly breathing on both sides, that's going to add to a huge amount of head movement, which can have a knock-on effect to your body and even lead to problems such as snaking. Mobility can be a problem, as not all of us have the mobility or range of movement in our neck and our shoulders to allow us to breathe to both sides. If you're one of those people and you're trying to get air in on that opposite side but can't really get your head far enough around, swallowing a mouthful of water each time isn't really going to lead to a productive stroke. That said, it isn't always an excuse, because technique and mobility can always be worked on. Another con to bilateral breathing could be the restriction on the amount of oxygen you can get in. It's one I actually struggle with, as sometimes I just need more air than I can get on every 3 strokes. So it could end up limiting your speed due to lack of oxygen. Finally, it could even affect your stroke rate. As human beings, we aren't entirely even, and the same goes for our swimming stroke. So maybe you've got a really nice style that you enjoy and you've found that perfect rhythm in your stroke, which involves just breathing on one side. And you might find to introduce breathing on the other side would set you back with the efficiency of your stroke, at least for the time being. That just shows the jury is out. As much as I love to see an evenly balanced stroke and the benefits of breathing on both sides in triathlon are huge, bilateral breathing is not something you need to stress about. Yes, having the ability to breathe on both sides is going to be great for just checking what's around you in a race, but doesn't mean you have to breathe on every 3rd stroke. Basically, you've got to work out what's best for you. So maybe have a think about how many of those pros or cons you can relate to, and do let us know in the comment section below which side of the fence you're sitting on. I must admit, I went through phases as a swimmer, so I mastered bilateral breathing only to have that torn apart and went back to breathing on my right as my coach identified I had excessive head movement. And that massively saw my swim times increase. But then I went to triathlon and the rest is kind of history. But I must admit, I like a mixture of breathing 2, 3 and 4, and I find that works nicely for me. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Give us a like, check out our social media channels, follow those, and you can subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button here.